Good morning. I'm Dr. Bill Wyatt, and I've put on a lot of these videos, so you've probably seen some of them before. But I'm a general dentist, but I've been doing orthodontics exclusively since 1970, and I did orthodontics. Started doing it right after I got out of dental school in 1955. I did my first case in 56. So I've had a lot of experience in it. And I'm trying to pass some of this stuff on to people. And if you're doing orthodontics and you're a general or pediatric, or it really doesn't make any difference what kind, you can be an orthodontist and join the American Orthodontic Society. Our primary objective is teaching orthodontics to general and pediatric dentists. But we've had some orthodontists that have come in the lectures to learn some part of something we were doing. And periodontists or anybody that's really wanting to know some orthodontics, come join this organization. We have our boards, and if you pass the American Orthodontic boards, you can do orthodontics, or you don't get past these boards. Even though not official stuff, but we have good teaching facility and teaching people who are really good to teach these courses that you learn. All right, I'll shut up there and get on with what I really wanted to get into this morning, and that is, should pediatric dentists do orthodontics? And my answer is absolutely. It is ridiculous to me that pediatric dentists hum around whether doing orthodontics or not. It is absolutely terrible to me that they don't do this. They don't teach it in the schools, or the ones that I know of. Some of them don't. And I have a I've taught many pedodontists orthodontics over the years, and have taught with pedodontists. For years I've taught with pedodontists, and they're pretty good folks, I tell you. And I have some good friends who are pedodontists, and we have a lot of them in the American Orthodontic Society. And I'm going to cover a case here this morning. I don't have many slides on it all. It won't take long, and I'll try to show why the following video will show you that you need to get started early on some of these cases, earlier than this one. This is not a real early case, and so if you wait till they're 12 or 14, it will be very difficult, if nearly impossible, to really correct the thing that has gone wrong. And so these cases need to be started early. Now, when I first got really serious on this and started going, there was very little, if any, interceptive preventive orthodontics done by the orthodontists. I'm not kicking the orthodontists now. That was what they were taught, and they did that. And so they waited around till they're about 12 or 14 years old, and then they started in on them, or at least the big majority of them did. They didn't do any older people. They didn't. In fact, I guess they were taught that they wouldn't move. We do orthodontics now when people 80, and I've had people that finished up in their 90s. I've never started anybody that was 90 years old, but I have carried some over into their 90s. Excuse me. Now that and you can straighten people's teeth, you can expand the arches, you can do all sorts of things, even in their 80s and 70s and all sorts of stuff. So that's what we can do today. But I'm talking about doing early interceptive stuff and getting things corrected before it gets started too long, and correct problems. And function is one of the things that we really ought to get going and get early as possible. Okay. My throat gets stopped up here. And I looked up things. What is a pedodontist or a pediatric dentist? I don't want to call him pedodontist anymore. Pediatric dentist, and I found several explanations of what they are. This is kind of what we came through there. That they are to provide primary, comprehensive, and I want to specialize on this word comprehensive, and by George, that includes orthodontics and therapeutic oral health care for infants to children through adolescence. And if these people want to stay on a little longer, let them stay on. They get accustomed to you, carry them on through to the end. If not, you're not declared by law that you got to send them off somewhere. Most of these people, a lot of times, they've gotten used to their pedodontist is working on them, and they would rather you go ahead and finish this thing up. And if it's complicated as all get out and you want an orthodontic to help you, you shouldn't have any problem having it. And that's what the orthodontist should be. Take on these tough, all kind of cases. Now, during my career as an orthodontist, I finally retired in '88, but I did everything under the sun, surgical orthodontics and everything up to that. That was not the most complicated stuff, but you can send that stuff out if you want to, and you could carry a simple one on and finish it. That's okay. Now, it's my sincere belief that this should include providing this information on orthodontics. It should be taught in the dental schools, and nobody should be looked down on because they're learning orthodontics. And the pedodontist should definitely learn orthodontics and do orthodontics. And I've taught many, even study clubs of pedodontists I would go to over the years. Roy Wolf was a big time pedodontist in St. Louis. He had a study club, about 150 people. Many of them were pedodontists, but he had general dentists and whoever wanted to learn it. I went up and spoke to that group several times. I spoke to a group in Florida and went on vacation with them down the Virgin Islands. I've taught many, many pedodontists. And those people got out of dental school and out of pedodontic school without orthodontic knowledge that they should have. I've taught up in Boston. I know it. Dr. Carapiza's got a course up there, and I went up years ago, and I had pedodontic professors in the class there from 3 different dental schools. And so people have been toying around with it. Just go in and start teaching it in the dental schools, and don't be looked down on for doing this. This is what you should do. And so I'm going to show you this case. It's pretty short, and that'll show one example of why we've got to do interceptive and preventive work. And very little of this was done. I don't know exactly all over the country or the world, but when I first started, there was very little interceptive preventive orthodontics done. And I got started into that pretty strong. I'm going to go on now. Here is a young man. I'm just jumping in the middle of the case here. If you look at this arch, the upper arch of this young man, and if you really know what you're doing, you will look at that and know that there's something wrong with it. It hasn't been formed by the tongue properly. And that's true. This arch has not been molded out by a tongue. If it had, these teeth would be further out over here. These would be further out over here, maybe even further than that. And this would be a round, cupped out deal, shaped like the tongue to some extent. Now, I'm going to show you the young man's face. Looks perfectly normal. Everything looks good. But this young man is a mouth breather. He has a tongue thrust problem. There, when he smiles, he cannot put his front teeth together with his, the upper and lower front teeth won't come to touch. So he can't bite through a hamburger, or he can't, and that's closing completely. Now, if you're into orthodontics and you just look at this case, you know something is wrong. The guy's got terrible functional problem. Here is a small crossbite over on the right side. It's not as bad over there as it is on the left. Now we'll go over here and look at that's just at the side again, showing you that crossbite. Now we'll get on the other side, and the left side of the mouth is a far worse crossbite, you see. Now a lot of times you'll have this is what we call a bilateral crossbite, but a lot of times they'll shift their jaw over this way, and these teeth will be fitting right, and these will be over all the way. And then the jaw shifts. Now his jaw has shifted some already. Here's the midline of the lower, and the midline up here is not lined up. The jaw moves over here, and if he grows up with this problem, this will probably get worse as he matures. And you wait till this young man is about 14 or 15 or maybe up in his teens or 20s, and he decides he's going to get his teeth straight. The mandible grows different when you go into these crossbites. The condile, the fossil, and everything modeled to meet this situation, and they are different. And the jaw is off to one side, and you'll see numerous people that have their whole jaws off to one side. You see, just not a great deal. I mean, you look at announcers on TV and anywhere, and you're going to find people with their jaws to one side. Many of them were caused by this situation right here. And this is because this young fella is a mouth breather, and he's a tongue thruster, and he's pushing the tongue in here. When he bites, he doesn't, when he swallows, he doesn't bite his teeth together properly. All right, we'll go on to another. That just shows you that left side of the mouth is far worse than the right side, but you'd have to call this a bilateral crossbite with a more severe on the left side of the mouth. Now you look at this arch. You see that, and you see that these teeth are much more in than these. Now, this arch is not right, but you watch it when we correct this. Now you've got to go in and do a first phase orthodontics. You got all these baby teeth in here, all this in here. If you wait till he gets 14, you will have a jaw off to one side, and you will have the condile, the fossa has changed by that time, and it's hard to get this thing back if it's very bad. You just can't hardly do it doing orthodontics after he's 12 or 14 or 15 or whenever you want to start cases like this. Some of them never start. They come in when they're 20 or 25 or 30 or 40 and their jaw sideways, and it's very hard to deal with. You can correct it, but their whole facial structure will be off to one side. You can make it meet, but it's hard to deal with. All right. Now we went in and we saw what was wrong. You've got to do this early. And so it'll be a first phase. And you may start it way over. Let me just go and I'll make a little deal. We'll do the first phase of orthodontics here. We don't know how long we got to wait before all these permanent teeth, or just about all of them, come in. Then you come down and finish the case. And you don't have to charge a great deal for this. It should be that where both of these charges are maybe a little more than they would be if you just did one deal, because you got to take stuff off, put them in retainers, and you got to watch the retainer till this comes along, and then you start in and finish the case up. That's called a two-phase case. But frequently, if you don't do this first phase when they're young, you cannot get it corrected properly when they get older. Now, my good friend, Dr. Carapizzi up in Boston, he is really hammers that in, I tell you. He really goes after that. And he had a good friend, Gianelli, who they both were quarterbacks on the football team at the same school. And Gianelli wasn't all that interested in early stuff, but Dr. Carapizzi was, and they fought all the time, and they were friends and everything, but they would, Dr. Carapizzi, boy, he's early for everything you think about, and he is good. Now, he's one of our lecturers in the AOS, and I'm proud of him, and he sometimes really steps on the toes of the orthodontist. He doesn't mean to, and I don't either, because there's some terribly good orthodontists that have helped me an awful lot, you know. But anyway, it's kind of funny between Dr. Carapizzi and Dr. Gianelli. And I'm sorry Dr. Gianelli has passed away now, and he's not around. But Dr. Carapizzi is one of our lecturers in the AOS, and he's a good one. And we have several pedodontists. Dr. Ed Gonzalez is one of our lecturers. He is a smart son of a gun from Florida, down around Tampa, and he's one of our lecturers. And I'm real proud of both of those pedodontists lecturing for us. And we have one of the extremely good orthodontists, Dr. Larry White, is one of our lecturers. And he started this orthodontic school in San Antonio, Texas. And he and I taught together for several years till I had to finally retire and give it up. But he's still teaching for the American Orthodontic Society. And if it hadn't been for him, I don't think I'd ever gotten to where I was doing orthodontics like I am. And so I want to thank him very much on my video here. Anyway, back to pedodontists doing orthodontics. So now we've gone in and we took it's funny, on this case, without even trying, we put a jack screw in here. I'm going to show you on the x-rays. I don't show you a picture of it here. We widened the maxilla where it just went out over the top of these lower teeth and kept that maxilla widened out, and the lower teeth, and you get him, break his tongue thrust, get him breathing through his nose and carry up the functional things, and now he swallows and he bites his teeth together with an adult swallow, and these teeth will assume their right position. You've just gotten the upper teeth of where they come in like this, you know, and the cusp is out on the outside, and they're both out there. Then the lower arch tends to shrink back a little bit because the tongue is up above where it's supposed to be, and it doesn't have the pressure on these that it does when you're breathing through the mouth. I know that's a fact because of my mouth breathing. My blooming lower arch is too wide, and I'm almost 90, and so I'm not going back in there and putting orthodontic stuff in to do this. But my lower arch is too wide, and I hit the cusp out here and bite my cheeks all the time, and that's why. All right, now I've jacked the thing out with a jack screw and put in a rotator, and this is a wrap-around retainer. I don't like anything else, and it'll stay in. You can fix it where you can, or take them out if you want to, with no clasp crossing over the teeth. That's preach that so much. I don't want those retainers that you bite the wire or bite something one way when you got it in, you take it out and you bite another way. And as far as these little shell retainers, I don't care for them either. Maybe on a interceptive case where you're going to finish them up, you might do, but your teeth don't come together and really grind themselves in. Okay, we put this in, we widen the teeth out pretty good, and his lower teeth will come together. This is a baby tooth that's coming out right here. The bicuspid is under here in the right place. I'll show that to you from the top in a minute. It looks like we didn't get it out there far enough. Okay, this is just a frontal view, and here's the model view when we started, and we lined that up, got him breathing through his nose, keeping his mouth shut. We used these tongue thrust fingers, but don't try to correct this problem if you don't have the airway where they can breathe. That's just not good. So here's where it is now. This is just where we'll sit around with this. I didn't worry about this about here. You'll finish that up when we get to doing the final phase. We're going to have to get that exact. When we get, here's the crossbite you see on the model, and this model was taken in 11/2000. Now here he is. This is 2003. This is some time after we had finished it. And there's the left side of the mouth was worse, and there it is now. See, you don't have to really go in here with something to shrink the lower arch. Just go ahead and widen the upper one out where it'll go over it, and it will go back some. Well, this will go back on its own. When you take the pressure of the tongue off of it, it'll go back in. So I don't mess with trying to put an arch in there that squeezes this together. You know, I think you just hold this out further, and if it stays further, that's good, because that's the bigger airspace up here, helping the guy breathe. Yeah, if you don't treat this, then the maxilla is squeezed together, and that's not only squeezing the maxilla, that is cutting down your airspace, making you breathe more and more through your mouth instead of your nose. And then if you wait till this guy's 14 years old or older before you do anything, he's done years of mouth breathing, and when you breathe through your nose, you get all these advantages. I mean, I've been teaching for years. I mean, your nose filters the air, it warms it up to body temperature, it also humidifies it, and it pulls the air has to go through with a velocity that brings it out into the lungs. But the nose itself gives off nitrous oxide, in here, which softens the veins, helps the lungs absorb more oxygen much better, and is bactericidal, helps get rid of virus, helps take care of a lot of the polyps and things. I mean, polyps that we breathe in that we're allergic to. Nose breathing is a real vital part. And if you don't swallow correctly, your teeth will erupt together more. And if they get erupt up here just 2 millimeters, it may be 4 or 5 millimeters out here in front, and you've increased the chin, the length of the lower third of the face. And if you increase the lower third of your face a ½ inch or more, which you can do pretty easy, then you have that long face. You can't keep your picking teeth together, and you have a terrible smile in there. So anyway, mouth breathing is bad, and nose breathing has a lot of effects, good effects, that your child needs, and they need that early so they can grow up with a normal facial structure. Otherwise, if they grow up with a facial structure like that, it is very difficult to correct it, and many times it has to be done surgically, which is terrible. I've scrubbed in on some of these surgical operations. I knew several good old surgeons, and they did work for me, and I did every kind of orthodontics you could think of, and I've even gotten in there with them and helped wire the bones together and things. All right, here's that upper arch, and you see how small it is right here, and it needs to be brought out on both sides. And there it is. There's the arch after we got it out there, and we made a retainer. I made a retainer, and I soldered on these two places right here, but I keep those models, and that's where that retainer was made, and it stays fitting in there. If they break it, you can put it back on there and fix it together again. And there's a lot of other advantages of having the model that you made the retainer on. I'll cover some of that later. I don't want to take up too much time here today. This is, all right, there's the model. Now this is 0,000, this is 03, and we started out with those 2000 to 2003. Now this is some time after we did it. He still hasn't lost these baby teeth. So we got to sit around here and wait until this is just about all of them are gone. Maybe these could be on their way, and you could start it and do all right to do that. Okay, and here's the lower arch. But the lower arch was this wide when we started. The upper fit inside here to some extent. It was more narrow. Now, the lower arch today is less than that. This is not out that way, see? And this came together. I didn't put anything in here to keep it, to make it go together. You don't have to go in here and put something, clamp it and shove it together. Just leave it alone. The tongue is out of it now. The tongue is in its right position up in the palate. Expanded. This is not the palate, that's a mirror in the mouth. But the tongue is doing its expansion work up above. And you think, well, that's too little pressure. That is ridiculous. The tongue pressure will move the teeth all over the place. If you push that tongue against them, I've had adults that push their anterior teeth out just holding a lozenge up there trying to quit smoking, pushing on it, and he stuck his front teeth out just like a kid sucking his thumb. I also had a lady come in that was 60, she was 72, and both arches were crumpled in, and she couldn't talk, but she wrote me a letter, says a little note, said I had beautiful teeth when I was 69, got cancer of the tongue, and they take this whole tongue out, and man, no pressure at all in here. These teeth start moving together in here. And I got a case, I'm going to put it, video on it so people will see it. All right, here's our kid. Now let me get into the, this is, I've taken several Panorexes on it. This is the first Panorex that I'm going to show, and not just draw on the Panorex. I put my palatal separator up here. I'm going to put those little wire fingers on the lower to stop the tongue thrust, and I'm going to widen this palate out, and when I get this palate widened out, they will breathe better 2 weeks or a week or two after you get the palatal separator in and crank this apart. They will breathe better, especially if you've got to put something real tight on here to bring the roots of the teeth out. So you increase this airway, and a lot of these people can go back to nose breathing, then their tongue goes back up here and isn't in here, so these teeth can move together. The lower teeth can move together. Now, this is essential that this stuff be done early. And the orthodontists back in the 50s and 60s and early 70s, I know they were not doing much. Now, some of them probably had started doing some interceptive preventive stuff. Now, nothing against orthodontists. They were taught this. Maybe I have it against the people teaching it. I don't know what it is, but it was not being done that. So the pedodontist is ridiculous for you to think you're doing something wrong by not going in here and starting this orthodontics like that. And they don't even teach it to you in the schools. And the schools seem to be intimidated by the orthodontic department. And this should not be. And so I'm going to send this video to the pedo areas. And when you have this next annual meeting, I hope that you will come to the conclusion that you need to be doing orthodontics in your pedodontic practice. And you can carry them as long as you want to. But and if you want to send them out, send them out. Or if you want to hang on to them a little longer, it's all right. Nobody ought to tell you what you do. And nobody should restrict you from the knowledge of knowing that. So for God's sakes, teach some orthodontics in your pedodontic programs. It just hurts me that it is not being done right. Here's this palatal separator. That's the way. It has to be done early. If I wait till he's grown, I can separate your palate when you're 30 years old, and it'll get you breathing better and all this. But your face is grown out of proportion. Get in there early and correct the function, and then widen the palate out, correct it, stop the tongue thrust, get them breathing through their nose and they swallow correctly. If you don't, they're swallowing without biting. These teeth erupt toward one another back in here, and the vertical height of the face increases. And if you get that really bad, it is very, very difficult to close the space down. You just can't hardly wear a Milwaukee brace maybe and do it. But a lot of those cases have to be done surgically to reduce this. And I've been in there in surgical cases. We took the whole maxilla out, took shears and cut it down 10 millimeters and then wired it back up there to close the space. I've been in there and I didn't do the cutting of it, but I helped wire it back up there. And this is a price to pay for not having done something when you were young. And so the pedodontist, it is ridiculous for you to think that you shouldn't be getting in there and doing this early. Now, I don't want to, heck, I have many good friends who are orthodontists, and I wish, maybe that I could have gone back to orthodontic school. But they made it where you just couldn't get in after you were older, and it was a real problem. So I just learned it on my own. And orthodontics was easy for me to learn. So anyway, I hope you get something out of this video, and I hope that you realize you can do orthodontics, you can learn it, and nobody ought to give you any trouble because you're doing that. That's my feelings. Now that's the end of the program, I guess. So I'm going to stop here and hope that many pedodontists will look at this. If you feel like you shouldn't do orthodontics, I feel like you darn sure should. So okay, I better shut up and just close this up.